Episode number 18 of How a Realist Hero Rebuilt the Kingdom. And there is so much to unpack this episode. Like, there is so much that happened. But the first thing that I want to really stop, our first stop on the choo-choo train that is Soma in How a Realist Hero Rebuilt the Kingdom. The first stop that I want to stop on is how just grounded in reality this anime is. And I truly, truly appreciate it. In this episode specifically, Soma quotes Machiavelli, right? And Machiavelli isn't just something that Tupac used to scream out back in the early 90s during his rap songs. It is this person who was a leader who wrote a book of, I guess, addendums in a sense, but a person who wrote a book about being a leader. And this was kind of back in like the days of Caesar, the days of Roman, the Roman type days and stuff like that. And it was a book about being a leader and kind of took the reader on a journey as to kind of the way you need to look at life, at being a leader, leading people, leading through fear, leading through love. What are the requirements of that leader, and what are the sacrifices that said leader needs to make? So I love how, again, grounded in reality this anime is, and how much effort the writer, the creator, and the studio put into making those call outs here, into showing us, the viewer, kind of like where they're pulling inspiration from. And it's just really a pleasure to watch, and it really will immerse you into the anime even more. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, I know all of what they're speaking of. I wasn't a history major or anything of that nature. I do like history, and it was one of my favorite things back in the days, but I never got as deep as to kind of make it like my major in college or anything like that, like Soma had done. Now, because it's so grounded in reality, they take the time to explain it to us as the viewer. They take us through, they took us through chapter 5 through 9 or something like that. And he kind of said, okay, I'm making this decision, I'm doing this act, and he calls out to a piece of the history that he had prior, right? So he makes his call out, he makes that call out there. Then he makes his next decision, and he makes the call out over there. He makes his next decision, he makes the call out there. And then ultimately he makes his last decision, and he explains it to Lisha, and he explains it to Aisha, right? And I just really appreciate that. And, to go a step further, I think it's so cool that they created this character, or the person who created this anime, or not the anime, the person who created this story, created a character who was a history buff and stuff. And I guess you could say like, hey, the person who was summoned was like the perfect person to have been summoned, because he is so what he enjoyed in reality, in life, prior to his summoning, was all of this history. So he had such a burning passion for the things that came before him that he made it his major in college. And I think where Japan, he's 20. So where Japan works, I think you go to college at 19. It's not quite 18. So he was probably in college for about a year or so. But obviously he had those passions before him. So he's constantly able to make decisions, and he has a grounded reality, or a grounded piece of history, to where someone made a similar decision before him, and he was able to kind of figure out on what that landed to. So that is able to drive a lot of his decisions in the anime going forward. So in this one, he decided to take out, like, I think 12 of the royal families that were serving him, because they also had strong ties to Amadonia, and they were feeding other countries information about what was going on in the kingdom of Alfreden. He left 2 of them alive, who were the ones who were the most vocal during the trial of Duke Vargas and his daughter Carla. And those 2 ended up being alive because they were pushing against the grain in a sense. So they're going to be extremely useful to Soma going forward. Then we got to find out that, hey, Carmine didn't die, but he became like the a white tiger beast guy in service of of Soma, which is a really cool spin because before Soma was a big proponent for, not allowing somebody of his stature, somebody of his ability, somebody who brings something so solid to the table that he didn't want to let that go. So he ended up turning him into the leader of the people in the shadows. So he now has a bunch of people in the shadows that he can lead, and he has Duke Carmine, or previously known as Duke Carmine, or Duke Gorg, whatever, being the leader of that, which I think is really, really cool. Then it came down to Vargas's trial and what he's going to be admitted to. He is allowed to keep his life. He's allowed to, go back to, well, not go back. He's allowed to just keep his life and go on living. Then when it came to Carla, he knows how important Carla is to Aisha, or I'm sorry, he knows how important Carla is to Lisha. Man, they're Lisha and Aisha. They're so close, I swear. But he knows how important she is. So she's going to be a slave to him and to her, which her original idea was to make her a concubine. But you can't do that because then, what about the people's opinion? But if she now gets turned into a slave, they can go like, yeah, you slave girl, you. You know what I mean? So it turns the narrative into something positive. But anything that she would have done in that position, she can now do now, but as a quote-unquote slave. Which, takes a little bit of power away from her, but at the same respect, she's going to be able to live a much better life. And then on top of all of that, right, Soma gave her an order. It basically said, if I become a tyrant, if I become this entity that I clearly don't want to be, I need you to be the one to end my life at that point, because the people surrounding me trust me and love me so much that I need a third party to come and make things right if I get to that point, which I thought was really special. Then the episode is done with all of that serious stuff, and it finally has Lisha and Aisha putting a plan together to go and pick Soma's flower. And I thought that was a cool scene too, because it's obviously Soma's first time. First times are really special, and he got to be the stuffing. I don't know. He got to be the filling in between the Oreo, however you want to call it. He got to be the he got to live his life, his best life. First times are memorable, and his first time is the double stuffed crust. So good for Soma. But really good episode. Really enjoyed it. I like the ending of it too, with them doubling up. I like that Lisha and Aisha have such a good relationship that they can double team the ball handler. But I like all that a lot, and I like how it's just a little sprinkle on the top of our cake. It's not the whole frosting and everything. It's just a little sprinkle of a fan service, just a tiny bit on the top. And then obviously at the end of the episode, you have the Princess of Van, who I think her plan is to throw herself at Soma and become one of his wives, and then manipulate things. But I think it's gonna work out that way still. But I think she'll end up falling for him, and I think that her plans will go out the window when she sees what kind of man he is and how he is a leader among leaders. All right, I'll leave you guys off on that thought. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode down in the comments below. I appreciate you guys being here every single week. We'll be here again next week for How Realist Hero Built the Kingdom, one of a very, very unique anime that I love a lot. All right, see you guys next week.